This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon, everybody. Todd Gaswick here again. It is Wednesday, the 15th of April. This is normally tax day for our country, but I'm sure you're all aware that the tax deadline has been extended out to 15 July. I'm actually taking advantage of that. Being stuck out here at the ranch, we didn't have all of our stuff. We didn't know we were going to be out here this long, but just got some stuff mailed to us, and so I can finish up what I need to send to my brother, who's my tax professional. He's pretty stressed right now with all that's going on, but I hope this finds you all well. This is my second video message that I'm sending out to everybody. I'm going to send with this message my link to the first one I sent out a good week and a half ago or so. That was the first one I sent out. Pretty sure some of you did not receive that because I overwhelmed my marketing system because I sent it all to everybody at the same time, and I need to break that down into two different messages. I think there's a limit as to how many people I can send it at a time. So I will have that link for the previous message in there. Today I'm going to take you in a little different path. I talk with anybody that's ever talked with me or existing clients know how much I emphasize the need to shelter your assets and to build assets in strategies that are going to provide you tax advantaged income in the future. Tax advantage is a compliance term. I like to use tax-free. As long as you're following certain rules, it is going to be tax-free. What I'm going to do, and for those of you that have received my book, if you've read it, I actually take you to this website and verbally take you through in a chapter how to go to the usdebtclock.org and understand what it's telling you, okay? I tend to look at that website at least once a week. Anybody I'm sitting down and talking to for the first time, I walk them through that as well, which really brings out the importance of building tax-free sources of income, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and take you to that website and walk you through it. Hopefully it will be of value to you. Okay, you should see my screen that I always have. This is my business laptop. Again, this is my shelter belt north of the ranch here, about a quarter mile to the north here. Going to bring up the website, and all you got to do, you don't have to do the www anymore, it's just US, and I've already been on this, so it's usdebtclock.org, okay? So I'll hit return and wait for this to kind of reconcile so I know that you're going to be seeing it. Yes, I will blow this up so you can see it better, okay? Now, first and foremost, this is the government's website, okay? This isn't a private company making these numbers up. This is controlled by the U.S. Treasury, okay? A couple things I want to highlight here. As much as I'm a Nebraska Cornhusker fan and love the color red, red numbers on this screen are not a good thing. That means those are debt type numbers. Anything in green is a surplus, those are positive, okay? You see all these different boxes, all these different squares. Whenever you hover your mouse over them, the description of what is being shown there is provided here in this upper center block. So I hover over the U.S. national debt number, and you'll see there, it provides the definition. The national public debt outstanding represents the face amount or principal amount of marketable and non-marketable securities currently outstanding, okay? Let me highlight a couple of areas here to really drive the point of how our debt is going to impact us individually, okay? And what I'm going to do is get to my drawing tools here. I'm going to bring up my highlighter. So, and I'll make sense of these numbers. First one I want to point out is the U.S. national debt. And that is right here in the upper left corner. That is $24.243 trillion. Now, I'm not going to get into how big $1 trillion is, just understand it's a really big number, okay? Now, there's a lot of confusion that in morphing of terms to mean the same thing, and I want to make sure you understand what the national debt is versus the budget deficit. They tend to be used interchangeably. They are two very different things. The budget deficit is right down here to, just to the lower right of the national debt, and that is our annualized budget deficit. If this was a green number, it wouldn't say budget deficit, it would be budget surplus. Historical note here, that number has not been green, meaning we haven't had a surplus in our budget since the last 2 years of Bill Clinton's presidency in the 90s, okay? Now that number right there is $2.029 trillion. Literally a week and a half ago, this was almost $1 trillion less. A couple weeks down the road, maybe a month down the road, that's probably going to jump another trillion as more and more of these stimulus checks go out. Because that CARES Act just added about $2.5 trillion to our deficit. Okay. How do they come up with this deficit? What they're doing is, what's the money coming in? Again, this is annualized. There's your U.S. federal tax revenue that I just highlighted at $3.492 trillion. And they take that against our spending. Now we're over here. In fact, let me erase what I've got to make sure you understand that. Okay, so here's the federal tax revenue, 3.492 trillion, and then over here, right below the national debt number, is U.S. federal spending. Now, if you took this number, which is larger than this, subtract the two, you get the 2.029 trillion. Again, if this was a green number, that would not say deficit, it would say surplus. That would mean that this number, our U.S. spending, is less than what we have coming in. Okay, now these are big numbers. Let me help you understand this in terms that, frankly, I can understand a little bit better. Okay. We are a family of farmers and ranchers, okay? Bear with me, I grew up on a farm ranch, okay? This U.S. national debt, 24.24 trillion. Let me really focus on what that means. We're a family of farmers. We make almost 35,000 a year. 34, 92, 778, etc. 35,000. Unfortunately, we are currently spending 55,000. Okay, we're over budget by a little over $20,000. We're spending $20,000 more than we have coming in for the year. Okay, well, how do we cover that deficit? Well, what the federal government is doing is we're covering this by adding it to our credit card, which already has $242,000 on it. And they haven't paid that down since the mid-90s. Okay, that number has not come down since the mid-90s. Okay, why does this matter? Okay, well, there's several ways that the government can get out of this mess. They make this spending number, and let me erase those highlights. They either start spending less than they have coming in, and they haven't done that for literally decades. They print money. The U.S. government has the ability to print money. They've been doing that for a while. They did that at the end of George W. Bush's presidency and a large part of President Obama's presidency, and they just started doing that again. Okay. The third is they've got to raise taxes. Okay. I don't care what President Trump did at the end of 2017 with the new tax law. This course that we're on right now, and I realize the coronavirus situation has just exacerbated this, but they've got to get their hands around this. And to address this, they got to do all three of those things, to include increasing our tax rates. Okay. Now, as bad as what I've just painted here, let me take you down to the bottom part of this website, and we just scroll down, and right here at the bottom right is a number that makes those other numbers we just went through seem small. U.S. unfunded liabilities. That number is $139.44 trillion. Now, what does that represent? That is covering the U.S. government's promises they've made to the American public in the form of Social Security, Medicare, and the interest on the debt, and federal and military benefits and pensions. That's $139 trillion that's not funded right now. That makes that $24 trillion national debt number look tiny. Okay, now let me do one more thing on this. Let's erase those drawings again, and let's go back to normal. We're going to go up to the top of this, and they got this debt clock time machine button or link at the top right of this website. When you click on that, you can go back in time and see what our debt was back in 1980 and 1990, etc. But let's go 4 years into the future and see what these numbers are going to be projected to be at that point. I'll warn you right now, they don't get better. Okay, a couple of numbers I want you to remember. Over here on the left, U.S. national debt is $24.2 trillion. In fact, I'll just write that down. Our budget deficit, again, what we're going into the whole annualized right now is $2.029 trillion. And the number down at the bottom is this unfunded liabilities is $139.44 trillion. Okay, let's remember those. I'm going to go up here. I'm going to hit this 2024, so it projects out what this will look like in 4 years. It updates. Let me expand this so you can see the numbers better. Now, U.S. national debt, $37.67 trillion. Again, that was $24.2 trillion. 4 years from now, it's projected that we will add over $13 trillion to our national credit card. Okay, but look at our deficit spending. That's gone from a little over 2 trillion to 3.5 trillion. Again, annualized. We go down here to the unfunded liabilities, $180 trillion. That's what is that? Basically a $40 trillion jump. Why such a large jump? There's a couple of things happening there. Most of you have probably heard this statistic that there are over 10,000 baby boomers turning 65 every day. Well, the bigger bow waves of baby boomers are yet to come in the next 2 to 3 years. That's going to exacerbate Social Security. It's going to exacerbate Medicare. Okay. Here's another thing that I don't know that this website really takes into account, but the printing of money tends to be inflationary. We haven't seen that impact yet on our economy, but if we start seeing higher rates of inflation, this gets worse. That's not something that's going to improve this. So what's the bottom line here, folks? Especially for those of you that are still in your earning years, your working years, you're still accumulating assets. I know those have probably come down if you've got investments, but it is critical that you start moving and repositioning how you're investing dollars and positioning your assets in ways and in strategies that are going to provide not just tax deferred growth for your accounts, but also when you go to pull those out, you follow certain rules, it's going to be tax free to you. That's going to be critical, because I assure you, it doesn't, in my opinion, in my studied opinion, it does not matter what tax bracket you're in right now. Many people assume that when they retire, they will be in a lower tax bracket. I want you to get out of that thinking, because this type of scenario suggests strongly that they're going to increase taxes. So you want to position yourself to not get hurt by that. Okay. I'll be sending this out. Again, I will send the previous link to my message a couple of weeks ago that I know many of you did not receive, again, because I think I overwhelmed my marketing system. So I'll send this out in a couple of different groupings. If you want to discuss how this could look for you, I welcome that type of phone call, that type of meeting. We would do it virtually. That's how I do most of my work in today's world anyway. And if you have not received, most of my clients should have received it, but if you would like a complimentary copy of my book, I talk about a lot of these things and a lot of the strategies, Conquering Your Wealth. All you've got to do is send me an email with your mailing address, or you can go to my website, conqueringyourwealth.com, and you can request the copy there. No cost to you. There's no shipping required. Would welcome the opportunity to send a book out to you. With that, let me get off the line here. Don't want this to be too long. It's actually inclement here in western Nebraska. We just had a kind of a rain squall come through, very windy. Hopefully the wind buzzing on my windows hasn't been a distraction noise-wise on this recording. But I hope this finds you all well, healthy, safe, and I know we're in a very interesting and difficult season in our country and in our communities. We will come out of this. I believe that very strongly, and I believe we'll come out of this very strongly. But we, again, not to overemphasize it, please start preparing for higher taxes in the future. Take care.